The X-Men are immortal on Krakoa. On the surface, Krakoa looks like paradise, lush island, mutant-only nation, leaders walking around like gods. But the craziest part? Mutants who die on Krakoa don't stay dead. Thanks to a system called the Five, resurrection has become standard operating procedure. Gold balls, yes, the guy once treated as a punchline, creates biological eggs. Proteus bends reality to make them viable. Elixir restores life. Tempest speeds up time so the body reaches maturity instantly. And Hope Summers ties all their powers together like a conductor leading an orchestra. Add Cerebro's constant backups of every mutant's mind, and death suddenly feels more like a scheduling inconvenience than the end of the line. This isn't a theory pulled out of thin air, it's canon, shown first in House of X number 5. But here's where the theory side takes off. Does this mean mutants are now immortal? On paper, yes. Any fallen mutant can be reborn with all their memories intact, body restored to prime condition. The implications are massive. Sacrifice in battle loses its weight if you know you're coming back next week. Political power tilts heavily in Krakoa's favor when they can tell world leaders, you can kill us, but we'll be at the next meeting anyway. And inside the mutant community, it raises a chilling question. What happens if the Five ever refuse to bring someone back? Immortality is only comforting when you trust the people holding the keys. Even fans started pointing out the philosophical mess. If Cyclops dies in battle and is resurrected, is it really the same Cyclops, or just a clone running on old software? Identity, morality, and even religion in the Marvel universe get shaken when mutants can treat death like a minor hiccup. And the wildest part is that the system's foundations are shady. Sinister is storing DNA. Xavier is hoarding psychic backups. There's more control here than any utopia wants to admit. Professor Xavier secretly planned the mutant cure. Charles Xavier has always been painted as the dreamer, the man fighting for peaceful coexistence between humans and mutants. But when you peel back the layers of his history, a darker theory starts to take shape. Xavier may have supported the creation of a mutant cure all along, not as betrayal, but as control. The groundwork for this idea shows up across multiple runs. In Joss Whedon's astonishing X-Men arc Gifted, scientists unveil a serum that can erase the X gene, and the mutant community explodes in debate. While characters like Beast rage at the thought of fixing evolution, Xavier's stance is eerily quiet. He never condemns the idea outright. Earlier stories reveal him wiping memories, manipulating allies, and even sidelining dangerous mutants because he feared what their powers could unleash. Those choices hint at someone who believes not all mutants should carry their gifts forever. Look at how often Xavier has edited reality inside people's heads. He's erased Magneto's memories, hidden information from his own students, and manipulated Jean Grey as a teenager to contain the Phoenix. Each act was justified in his mind as for the greater good. This pattern makes the theory of him secretly backing a cure believable. To him, a depowering option might be another safeguard, one more tool to manage mutant kind when diplomacy or telepathy aren't enough. Fans have debated this angle for years, especially after Krakoa's rise. In a world where mutants now have resurrection protocols and near immortality, Xavier's decision to allow certain powers to continue unchecked becomes even more questionable. If he truly wants balance, would he also be the architect of a system that lets dangerous powers disappear quietly, packaged as choice? The cure has always been pitched as humanity's weapon against evolution. But if Xavier's fingerprints are anywhere near it, that weapon becomes something more chilling. An insurance policy written by the man mutants trust most. Cyclops has a secret sibling. The Summers family tree has always been less of a family album and more of a classified file. We know Scott Summers as Cyclops, his younger brother Alex as Havoc, and eventually Gabriel, better known as Vulcan, was revealed in X-Men. Deadly Genesis as the long-lost third brother raised on Shi'ar soil. But fans have never stopped asking, is there another sibling hiding in Marvel's vaults? The roots of this theory stretch back decades. Mr. Sinister's obsession with the Summers bloodline is one of the longest-running threads in X-Men history. His experiments and manipulations make it clear he believes their DNA is the key to unlocking evolutionary perfection. When Marvel shocked readers with Vulcan's existence in 2006, it set a precedent. There's no guarantee that Scott and Alex know the full truth about their family. Time travel, cloning, and cosmic kidnappings have already played a role in their story, leaving the door wide open for another hidden Summers child. Hints have cropped up in surprising places. At one point, Gambit jokingly speculated about another Summers brother, fueling years of fan discussion. Cable's convoluted backstory tied Nathan Summers to alternate timelines, raising more questions about what counts as a sibling. Even in the Krakoa era, where genealogy has become a weapon and resurrection a tool, the Summers DNA continues to be a point of fixation, especially with Sinister lurking around every corner. The theory gains weight from Marvel's pattern of revisiting family secrets when the franchise needs a shakeup. First Havoc, then Vulcan. Each reveal has changed the X-Men landscape, and fans suspect Marvel still has another card to play. A new Summers sibling wouldn't just expand the family, it would raise the stakes stakes for Sinister's plans, destabilize Cyclops' role as leader, and potentially introduce a mutant whose powers outclass anything we've seen from the bloodline so far, the Summers are a genetic weapon Marvel keeps reloading. And if history is any indicator, the next trigger pull could reveal yet another long-lost brother or sister waiting in the wings. Magneto has been secretly helping the X-Men. Magneto is the X-Men's eternal rival, the master of magnetism who champions mutant superiority at any cost. But peel back the history of his battles with Xavier's team, and another picture starts to emerge. Magneto has spent just as much time saving mutants as he has fighting them, often in ways that end up protecting the X-Men themselves. Start with Age of Apocalypse. In that alternate timeline, Magneto takes Xavier's place as leader of the X-Men, proving he understands the stakes of protecting mutant kind. In the main universe, his so-called villainous schemes often coincidentally wipe out threats aimed at the X-Men. During Fatal Attractions, he unleashed an EMP that paralyzed global technology. Brutal, yes, but it disrupted anti-mutant programs being designed in secret. When Genosha's mutant population was slaughtered, Magneto didn't hide in the shadows. He fought back against the very forces that wanted to annihilate all mutants, an act that indirectly shielded the X-Men from the same fate. Even in direct confrontations, Magneto has shown restraint. During House of M, his reality-warping daughter Wanda reshaped the world, and Magneto's choices within that crisis didn't destroy the X-Men. They kept them intact long enough to survive a cosmic reset. On Krakoa, his position on the Quiet Council is less about conquest and more about stability. By agreeing to co-rule with Xavier, Magneto provides legitimacy and raw power to the new nation, ensuring enemies think twice before striking. That partnership doesn't look like a betrayal of his philosophy. It looks like strategy to safeguard mutants in the long run. The theory that Magneto has been covertly helping the X-Men holds weight because it reframes his so-called villainy as calculated moves in a longer game. His enemies, human governments, sentinels, cosmic invaders, are the same forces the X-Men spend their lives fighting. By destabilizing those threats, even through ruthless methods, Magneto preserves the very future the X-Men rely on. Professor X wants all of humanity to become mutants. For decades, Charles Xavier has been painted as the patient visionary. His dream, mutants and humans living together in peace. But a growing theory flips that dream on its head. What if Xavier's real endgame isn't coexistence at all? What if he wants to make everyone on Earth a mutant? The seeds are scattered across his history. Xavier's powers aren't limited to teaching or defense. He's one of the most powerful telepaths alive. He's erased memories, implanted commands, and steered the behavior of allies and enemies alike. Those choices reveal a man comfortable with rewriting minds in pursuit of his ideals. On Krakoa, his public image only reinforces this suspicion. Always hidden under Cerebro's helmet, Xavier speaks less like a professor and more like a messiah, calling mutants the future while rallying his people into a unified, almost cult-like nation. The theory grows stronger when you factor in the X gene's flexibility. In storylines like X-Men, Legacy, and House of X, science shows the gene can be activated, suppressed, or even manipulated on a population-wide scale. With Krakoa producing miracle drugs that extend human life, heal disease, and rewrite biology, the infrastructure for genetic transformation already exists. It wouldn't take much to turn that same technology toward flipping humanity's DNA into mutant form. From an ethical standpoint, it fits Xavier's pattern. He's always believed in a world shaped by evolution. If humanity won't accept mutants, then assimilation through mutation may look, in his mind, like the only path to survival. His silence in debates about cures, his willingness to let telepathy cross moral lines, and his push for mutant dominance all feed into the possibility that peaceful coexistence was just the cover story. Jean Grey never really dies. Jean Grey has died so many times in Marvel Comics that it's practically a running joke. But the theory that she never truly dies, that every death is just another stage in an endless cycle with the Phoenix Force waiting to bring her back, is one of the most enduring in X-Men lore. The receipts are everywhere. In the Dark Phoenix saga of 1980, Jean sacrificed herself on the moon to stop the Phoenix from consuming entire galaxies. Readers mourned, Marvel promised it was final, and then X-Factor revealed years later that Jean had never actually died at all. The Phoenix had created a perfect copy, while the real Jean slept in a healing cocoon under Jamaica Bay. That moment set the precedent. Jean's deaths were less an end and more a costume change. Since then, the pattern has only grown. She's been resurrected in Here Comes Tomorrow by the Phoenix Egg in Phoenix, Resurrection, and reintroduced in Krakoa's Resurrection era. Each time the Phoenix Force is the common denominator. Whether portrayed as a cosmic entity or an extension of mutant evolution, it never leaves Jean for long. Instead, it waits, dormant, ready to spark her return return when the story demands it. What makes the theory believable is how consistent Marvel has been in tying Jean's essence to the Phoenix. The Force itself is defined as life incarnate. Death has no meaning to it. By extension, Jean as its chosen host becomes functionally immortal. Every apparent end is just a transition, a reset button for her identity, power, and place in the X-Men mythos. This creates fascinating consequences for the team. When Jean enters a fight, is sacrifice even sacrifice if the Phoenix guarantees she'll rise again? And how much of her identity is her own if a cosmic firebird dictates her return every decade? At this point, Jean's deaths have become less about endings and more about Marvel, reminding readers that she is permanently tethered to the Phoenix. She doesn't die, she reloads. The mutant cure is a weapon. Every time a cure for mutation appears in the Marvel universe, it's pitched as salvation, a gift to mutants who don't want their powers. But look closely, and the cure reads less like medicine and more like a weapon designed to control, weaken, or even erase an entire species. The biggest spotlight came in Joss Whedon's astonishing X-Men run with the Gifted storyline. There, Dr. Kavita Rao unveiled a serum that could remove the X gene entirely. While some mutants were curious about the choice, the X-Men quickly realized the cure was a tool for governments and corporations to strip away powers they feared. Even in the story, mutant leaders debated whether it would be offered or forced. That gray area is exactly what makes the theory so dangerous. A cure can always be weaponized. The films leaned into this idea too. In X-Men: The Last Stand, the cure was militarized into guns, allowing soldiers to depower mutants on the battlefield. The message was clear: if mutants can't be eliminated, they can be neutralized. That's not treatment, it's control. Then there's the Apocalypse angle. Fans argue the cure aligns disturbingly well with his philosophy. Apocalypse believes in survival of the fittest, and a cure would quickly separate the strong who resist from the weak who accept it. In this reading, the cure is less about peace and more about culling the herd, a mass experiment that reshapes mutant kind through fear and compliance. The Krakoa era only sharpens the stakes. With resurrection protocols making mutants virtually immortal, the cure becomes the one loophole that could undo everything. Strip away the X gene, and Krakoa's entire system collapses. The cure could dismantle mutant society at its foundation. Mr. Sinister is the real architect of mutant kind. Nathaniel Essex, better known as Mr. Sinister, has been meddling with mutant DNA since the 19th century. Enhanced by Apocalypse and obsessed with genetics, he spent more than a century cataloging bloodlines, experimenting with cloning, and shaping evolution from the shadows. The wild theory that Sinister isn't just an opportunistic manipulator, he may be the true architect behind far more of mutant kind's existence than anyone realizes. The evidence runs deep. Sinister's fixation on the Summers and Grey families is legendary. He orchestrated the birth of Cable by ensuring Cyclops and Jean's DNA would merge, believing their offspring would be the ultimate weapon against Apocalypse. In later arcs, he's shown to have entire vaults of genetic material, samples from nearly every mutant on Earth. On Krakoa, this obsession is brought to the forefront. As part of the Quiet Council, Sinister openly runs experiments with mutant DNA, and his role in the resurrection protocols means his fingerprints are now literally on the rebirth of every fallen mutant. Comics like Hellions and Immortal X-Men peel the curtain back further. Sinister has cloned himself, created chimera mutants, and even built failsafes into Krakoa's systems. He builds entire populations out of it. That makes the theory of him being the hidden hand behind modern mutant kind more plausible. If Krakoa's miracle resurrection is powered by genetic archives, who's to say Sinister hasn't hardwired his own influence into the process? The implications are staggering. If Sinister's manipulations run this deep, then mutants aren't thriving on their own evolution. They're thriving on his design. Generations of mutants could be pawns in a genetic chess match they never signed up for. Even Krakoa itself, which prides itself on independence and sovereignty, may unknowingly rest on a foundation engineered by the one man who treats DNA like clay. Mr. Sinister thrives on long games, and the longer Krakoa exists, the clearer it becomes. His hand may have been guiding their entire future from the very beginning. The Phoenix Force is tied to the X gene. For years, the Phoenix Force has been treated as a cosmic entity, an immortal firebird that burns worlds and resurrects chosen hosts. But a growing theory reframes it completely. What if the Phoenix isn't an external power at all? What if it's directly connected to the X gene, making it the ultimate expression of mutant evolution? The strongest case comes from the recurring hosts. Jean Grey is the obvious candidate, but she's not alone. Rachel Summers, Hope Summers, and even Emma Frost have all wielded the Phoenix at different points. These are mutants whose DNA seems predisposed to resonate with the Force. If the Phoenix were just cosmic chance, the pattern wouldn't cluster so tightly around specific bloodlines. Marvel has quietly fed this idea. In Avengers vs. X-Men, the Phoenix Force arrives on Earth not to destroy mutants, but to reignite their dwindling population after the Scarlet Witch's No More Mutants spell. In House of X/Powers of X, Hickman leaned into the idea of mutant destiny, suggesting that the species is moving toward a singular evolutionary endpoint. Fans connect these dots. The Phoenix is the X gene's final form, an evolutionary safeguard that ensures mutant kind can always rise from extinction. Even the Phoenix's famous mantra, "Burn what doesn't work, ignite what does," reads like natural selection with fire. It destroys weakness and fuels rebirth. That's not just cosmic poetry, it's the X gene's purpose, written large across the universe. If this theory holds, the Phoenix is mutant kind's birthright. Every mutant might carry a dormant fragment of that fire, waiting for the right conditions to spark. Jean Grey wasn't chosen by the cosmos. She was the first to embody what the X gene has been building toward all along. Days of Future Past is inevitable. Few X-Men stories loom as large as Days of Future Past. Published in 1981, it showed a nightmare timeline where Sentinels rule, mutants are hunted, and the X-Men are relics of a world that turned against them. The original comic had Kitty Pryde's mind sent back in time to prevent the assassination of Senator Kelly, an event that triggered mutant internment camps and mass extermination. The story ends with a fragile hope. Maybe the future can be avoided. But the theory says otherwise. Mutants are destined to reach that future no matter what they do. The evidence is overwhelming. Alternate futures in Marvel almost always circle back to oppression. Age of Apocalypse, Bishop's Timeline, The Last X-Men, X-Men 2099, they all carry echoes of Days of Future Past. Sentinels might take different forms, governments might change, but the underlying pattern of fear and control repeats endlessly. Writers have revisited the dystopia in sequels like Days of Future Present and in modern arcs where Nimrod and Orcus emerge, showing the machinery of extermination is always waiting to reassemble itself. Even Hickman's Powers of X underscored this inevitability. Moira McTaggart's reincarnated timelines reveal that no matter how many times mutants try to rewrite history, they face extinction, sometimes from humans, sometimes from machines, sometimes from themselves. Krakoa may look like triumph, but in Moira's 10th life, it's just another checkpoint before the collapse. Fans see this as Marvel admitting a brutal truth. The mutant metaphor is tied to persecution. A world where mutants live free without fear undercuts the allegory. So the inevitable future theory reflects the publishing philosophy. The X-Men's survival depends on the threat of annihilation, and Days of Future Past is the template Marvel keeps returning to. That's why this theory stings. Every time the X-Men dodge disaster, the shadow of the Sentinels is still there, waiting. Mutants can change the players, the politics, and even the planet, but the calendar always flips back to dystopia. Mutant strength depends on control. When people talk about power levels in the Marvel universe, they often treat them as fixed stats. Cyclops blasts at one level, Colossus has one level of durability, Rogue drains at a set limit. But one of the wildest theories argues that a mutant's real strength is about how well they control what they've been given. Take Jean Grey. As a young student, she struggled to levitate small objects. With training from Xavier and later her connection to the Phoenix, she tapped into powers so vast they could reshape galaxies. Storm is another prime example. Her ability to manipulate weather is tied to her emotional state. When she's calm, it's a drizzle. When she's angry, she can summon planet-scale hurricanes. The control is the difference between being a standard mutant and being classified as Omega level. Magneto's arc reinforces this theory. His mastery of magnetism grew exponentially over the years. Early stories had him tossing cars and bending metal gates. Modern stories show him manipulating the Earth's electromagnetic field, controlling planetary orbits, and even pulling iron from human bloodstreams. The mutation didn't change. His control did. This theory reshapes how weak mutants are viewed. Someone like Iceman started out making snowballs and ice slides. Over time, by focusing on control, he became one of the most powerful Omegas alive, capable of manipulating molecular moisture and freezing entire regions. The same X gene that once looked small-scale became world-ending once he learned to use it fully. What makes this believable is how often Marvel reinforces the theme through training. The Danger Room exists not just for combat practice, but for control drills. Because in the X-Men universe, discipline can turn an average power into a devastating one. It's also why characters like Xavier and Emma Frost stress psychic stability. Without control, telepaths are nuclear weapons walking around in human skin. The X gene makes mutants attractive. One of the strangest fan theories about mutants has nothing to do with powers, battles, or cosmic destinies. It's about looks. According to this idea, the X gene doesn't just give mutants abilities, it also makes them more attractive. And if you scan through decades of comics, it's hard not to notice how many mutants look like they walked out of a fashion magazine. Think about it. Cyclops, Storm, Jean Grey, Rogue, Gambit, Psylocke. Colossus, the list reads like a supermodel roster. Even characters meant to be ordinary by superhero standards end up drawn with perfect physiques and sharp features. Fans have argued this is an in-universe quirk of evolution. The theory suggests that the X gene subtly enhances aesthetic appeal as a survival trait, ensuring mutants are seen as charismatic and desirable even when their powers might make them threatening. There are some fascinating story angles that give this idea legs. In Ultimate X-Men, Emma Frost outright tells Jean Grey that mutants are the next stage of humanity, not just in power, but in physical perfection. Characters like Gambit and Dazzler are constantly written as irresistibly charming, while others, like Magneto, carry an aura that makes them compelling leaders despite their ruthlessness. Even villains such as Mystique and Emma Frost herself embody this trend, blending beauty with danger in ways that keep them at the center of X-Men lore. Of course, there are plenty of counterexamples, mutants with obvious deformities like Nightcrawler, Glob Herman, or Beak. But in fan discussions, that only strengthens the theory. If the X gene produces both monstrous and idealized forms, maybe attractiveness is a built-in evolutionary push, balancing survival through charisma with survival through raw power. Whether it's pure comic book exaggeration or an actual quirk of the X gene, the pattern is impossible to miss. Across decades, mutants consistently dominate Marvel's ranks of the most striking characters. The theory turns a long-running artistic choice into something bigger: evolution by hotness. Why Jean Grey attracts so many mutant men? Jean Grey is the center of one of the most tangled love webs in Marvel history, from Cyclops to Wolverine, from Magneto to Bishop. Even Beast at one point, Jean has drawn an endless line of admirers. Fans joke about it constantly, but the theory is that her appeal isn't just personality or looks. It may be tied directly to her role as the Phoenix and her psychic presence. On the surface, Jean's attractiveness is obvious. She's written as compassionate, intelligent, and loyal, while also carrying an aura of leadership that makes her magnetic. But her telepathy complicates things. In-universe, telepaths project emotional resonance, subtle cues that make people trust or even adore them. With Jean, that effect may be constant, her very presence influencing how others see her, even when she doesn't mean to. Then there's the Phoenix. As the embodiment of life and rebirth, the Phoenix Force is primal energy. When Jean bonds with it, she becomes more than human, more than mutant. She becomes destiny incarnate. For other mutants, being near her might feel like standing next to a cosmic fire they can't help but orbit. That helps explain why figures as different as Cyclops and Magneto are drawn to her. Scott represents discipline, Logan represents raw instinct, and Eric represents ideological passion. Yet all find themselves captivated by Jean's gravitational pull. Writers have leaned into this repeatedly. In New X-Men, Wolverine admitted his bond with Jean felt inevitable, like it had always been there. In alternate timelines, such as Age of Apocalypse, she still draws devotion no matter the circumstances. Even when Jean dies and returns, her relationships reignite as though her aura resets everything around her. And that's it. Now to you, which of these crazy theories do you think Marvel is secretly holding on to, just waiting to drop in the next big storyline? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. As you leave a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more amazing videos like this one.